The monitoring station on Haven's Rest hadn't received a supply ship in 18 months. Located on the edge of what humans optimistically called the outer frontier, the small agricultural colony was so remote that even the bureaucrats back on Earth occasionally forgot it existed. Population 847 souls, mostly farmers, miners, and their families who'd come here, seeking the kind of peace that only the galaxy's forgotten corners could provide. Commander Vexhai of the Zephyrian Confederacy studied the orbital scans with growing satisfaction. The planet below showed all the signs of human habitation, neat agricultural sectors, small settlements, mining operations, but their deep space reconnaissance had detected no military presence, no defensive installations, no communication with the broader human colonial authority. To all appearances, Haven's Rest was an abandoned world ripe for the taking. "Are you certain there's been no contact with human authorities?" Vexhai asked his intelligence officer, a spindly creature whose sensory organs twitched nervously. "Completely certain, Commander. Our monitoring stations have detected no subspace communications in or out of this system for over a standard year. The colonists appear to have been forgotten." Vexhai's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his kind. The mighty human race, so proud of their diplomatic networks and their interconnected colonies, had apparently misplaced an entire world. It was almost laughably typical of their chaotic approach to governance. The Zephyrian Confederacy had been expanding steadily for decades, absorbing forgotten worlds and minor colonies that the major powers had overlooked. It was a strategy that had served them well. Why fight the great empires when you could simply claim what they'd abandoned? And Haven's Rest, with its fertile soil and mineral deposits, would make an excellent addition to their growing territory. "Begin the annexation protocol," Vexhai ordered. "Full diplomatic documentation. I want this to be completely legal under Galactic law." What Vexhai didn't know, what no one in the galaxy truly understood, was that Haven's Rest wasn't abandoned at all. It was simply quiet. The colonists had chosen this remote world specifically to escape the noise and chaos of more connected systems. They lived simply, farmed their land, raised their children, and maintained the kind of peaceful existence that had become increasingly rare in the galaxy's more populated sectors. More importantly, Vexhai had no understanding of the human quantum neural network. Every human colony, no matter how remote, was connected to this vast instantaneous communication system, a network so advanced that even humanity's closest allies only suspected its existence. When the first Zephyrian ships entered orbit around Haven's Rest, when the first annexation broadcasts began, when the first scared colonist activated an emergency beacon, the entire network knew. On Earth, in the halls of the Colonial Authority, alarms began to sound. On Luna, military commanders looked up from their strategic planning sessions. On Alpha Centauri, diplomatic corps officers paused in their negotiations. On 1,000 worlds in 1,000,000 homes, humans suddenly knew that one of their own was in danger. Sarah Chen was tending her vegetable garden when the ships appeared. A former engineer who'd come to Haven's Rest seeking a simpler life, she looked up at the alien vessels with more curiosity than fear. The colony had occasional visitors, traders, explorers, the odd research vessel. But these ships were different. They moved with the precision of a military formation, and their design was unfamiliar. The colony's communications center, run by an elderly man named Marcus Webb, received the first official transmission 20 minutes later. The message was polite, formal, and absolutely chilling. The Zephyrian Confederacy was claiming Haven's Rest under the Galactic salvage and settlement protocols. The colonists had 72 hours to evacuate or accept integration into the Confederacy. Webb's hands shook as he activated the emergency beacon. He'd been a communications officer in the Human Defense Force before retiring to Haven's Rest, and he knew exactly what that beacon would do. Every human in the galaxy would know about the annexation within minutes. What he didn't know was what would happen next. As the beacon's signal propagated through the quantum network, something unprecedented began to occur. On military bases throughout human space, personnel reported for duty without being called. Ships that had been scheduled for maintenance suddenly found their crews volunteering for immediate deployment. Diplomatic missions that had been stalled for months suddenly found breakthrough solutions. Humanity was waking up. Commander Vexhai watched the colonists' activities with mild amusement. They were clearly agitated by the annexation notice, scurrying around their small settlements like disturbed insects. Some seemed to be packing, others were gathering in groups, probably debating whether to resist or comply. It was all quite predictable. What was less predictable was the reading his sensors officer reported an hour later. "Commander, we're detecting massive subspace distortions in the outer system. It appears to be hyperspace emergence signatures, hundreds of them." Vex High's confidence faltered for the first time. "Traders? A convoy that got lost?" "No, sir, the signatures are too large, too organized. This looks like a fleet mobilization." As if to confirm his worst fears, the communications officer suddenly straightened in his chair. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from everywhere, every frequency, every channel, simultaneous broadcast." "Put it through," Vex High ordered, though his voice carried a tremor he couldn't quite suppress. The voice that filled the bridge was calm, measured, and spoke in perfect Zephyrian. "This is Admiral Sarah Okafor of the Human Colonial Defense Force. You are currently in violation of the Terran Sovereignty Accords by threatening a human colony. You have exactly 1 hour to withdraw from Haven's Rest or face the consequences." Vex High stared at the communication display in disbelief. How did they respond so quickly? We're in the middle of nowhere. His intelligence officer's sensory organs were now vibrating with panic. "Commander, long-range sensors are detecting emergent signatures throughout the sector. It's not just one fleet, it's dozens, maybe hundreds. They're coming from every direction." For the first time since beginning his career in the Confederacy military, Commander Vex High experienced true fear. The humans hadn't just responded to his annexation of a forgotten colony. They had responded with what appeared to be their entire military, and they had done it in less than 2 hours. As he watched his sensor displays fill with the red indicators of approaching human vessels, Vex High began to understand that he had made a terrible miscalculation. Haven's Rest wasn't a forgotten colony at all. It was a tripwire connected to something vast and dangerous that he was only beginning to comprehend. The galactic war that would reshape the balance of power throughout the galaxy had begun, with a single arrogant assumption that humans could forget one of their own. The Zephyrians were about to learn how wrong they were. Admiral Sarah Okafor stood before the holographic display in her command center, watching as the greatest military mobilization in human history unfolded across the galaxy. Ships that had been on routine patrol were converging on Haven's Rest. Reserve fleets were activating. Even civilian vessels were volunteering for support roles. In less than 4 hours, humanity had done something that should have taken weeks of planning and coordination. "Admiral," her aide, Lieutenant Commander Park, approached with barely contained excitement. "The response has been unprecedented. We have confirmation of fleet movements from every sector. Even the deep space exploration vessels are turning around." Okafor nodded grimly. She'd known this day would come eventually. For years, human strategists had wargame scenarios just like this. What would happen if someone attacked a human colony, assuming humanity wouldn't or couldn't respond? The theoretical models had suggested a coordinated response, but the reality was surpassing even their most optimistic projections. "What's our total force estimate?" she asked. "Still calculating, ma'am, but early numbers suggest over 2,000 combat vessels will be in the Haven's Rest sector within 72 hours. That's not counting support ships, civilian volunteers, or the Allied forces that are requesting permission to join the operation." Okafor raised an eyebrow. "Allied forces? The Centaurian Federation sent a formal offer of military support 20 minutes ago. The Free World's Alliance is mobilizing 3 fleets. Even the normally neutral Diplomatic Guild has offered to provide intelligence and logistics support. Ma'am, I've never seen anything like it." Neither had Okafor, and she'd been in the Colonial Defense Force for 30 years. The human response was one thing. Their quantum neural network made near instantaneous coordination possible, even if few outside humanity truly understood how it worked. But the Allied response suggested something deeper, something that even she hadn't fully appreciated until now. Humanity's century-long investment in diplomacy, trade relationships, and mutual defense agreements was paying dividends in ways no one had anticipated. On the bridge of the Zephyrian flagship Dominant Conquest, Commander Vex High was experiencing what his medical officer would later diagnose as a severe anxiety disorder. The sensor displays that had shown a quiet, empty sector 4 hours ago now resembled a swarm of angry insects, with new hyperspace emergent signatures appearing every few minutes. "Status report," he demanded, though his voice cracked slightly. 732 human vessels in the outer system and growing, his tactical officer reported. They're maintaining formation at the system's edge, not advancing, but waiting. Waiting for what? Unknown, sir. But we're also detecting non-human vessels, Centaurian designs, free worlds, ships, even some configurations I don't recognize. Vexhai slumped in his command chair. When he'd planned this operation, the worst-case scenario had been a single human patrol ship arriving to investigate the annexation. Instead, he was facing what appeared to be the largest fleet concentration in galactic history, all converging on his position. The communication officer looked up nervously. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission from Admiral Okafor." "Put it through," Vexhai said, dreading what he was about to hear. Admiral Okafor's image appeared on the main screen, and Vexhai was struck by how calm she looked. There was no anger in her expression, no triumphant gloating. If anything, she looked disappointed. "Commander Vexhai," she began, and the Zephyrian was unsettled to realize she knew his name. "I want to be very clear about your situation. You currently have approximately 800 vessels threatening a human colony. We currently have approximately 800 vessels protecting it, with more arriving every hour." Vexhai found his voice. "Admiral, this is a legal annexation under—" "No," Okafor interrupted, her tone still calm but carrying an edge of steel. "It's not. Haven's Rest is a registered human colony, documented in the Galactic archives and has been in continuous habitation for 15 years. More importantly, it's protected under Article 7 of the Terran Sovereignty Accords, which the Zephyrian Confederacy signed 8 years ago." The Admiral paused, and when she continued, her voice was softer but somehow more menacing. "But legalities aside, Commander, you've made a fundamental error in judgment. You believe that because Haven's Rest was quiet, it was forgotten. You believe that because its residents chose a simple life, they were unprotected. You were wrong on both counts." Behind her, Vexhai could see the bridge of her flagship, bustling with activity. Officers moved with the efficient precision of a military at peak readiness. Display screens showed tactical formations that looked like nothing he'd seen in any military manual. "The residents of Haven's Rest are not subjects to be integrated into your confederation," Okafor continued. "They're not resources to be exploited or territory to be claimed. They're our people, and humanity has a very simple policy when it comes to protecting our people." "Which is?" Vexhai asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Whatever it takes," Okafor replied. "You have 12 hours to withdraw from the system. After that, we'll withdraw you ourselves." The transmission ended, leaving Vexhai staring at a blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders, but he found himself paralyzed by the magnitude of his miscalculation. He'd expected to find an undefended world, and instead had stumbled into what was clearly a trap, or at least what humans had turned into a trap. "Sir?" his tactical officer ventured. "Your orders?" Vexhai looked at the sensor displays showing the massive human fleet, then at the key communication logs showing messages of support from dozens of allied species, then at the intelligence reports that were painting an increasingly dire picture of humanity's military capabilities. For the first time in his career, Commander Vexhai seriously considered the possibility that he had provoked an enemy he couldn't defeat. On the surface of Haven's Rest, Sarah Chen stood in her garden looking up at the stars that were now filled with the lights of warships. Her peaceful world had become the center of galactic attention in a matter of hours, but somehow she wasn't afraid. The knowledge that thousands of human ships were out there, that the entire human race had mobilized to protect her small community, filled her with a profound sense of belonging she'd never experienced before. Marcus Webb approached, his face grave but determined. "Sarah, we need to evacuate the outer settlements. If this turns into a shooting war—" "It won't," Sarah said with quiet confidence. "Look at them up there. Look at how many came. This isn't about Haven's Rest anymore. This is about something bigger." Webb followed her gaze to the stars. "What do you mean?" "They're not here to fight," Sarah said, understanding dawning in her voice. "They're here to make a point. That you can't just take what belongs to us and expect us to forget about it. That every human, no matter how far from home, matters." As if to confirm her words, a new transmission came through on the colony's communication system. It was Admiral Okafor again, but this time she was addressing the colonists directly. "Citizens of Haven's Rest," the Admiral's voice was warm, personal. "I want you to know that you are not alone. You never have been. Your choice to live peacefully on the frontier doesn't make you less important to us. If anything, it makes you more precious. You represent the best of what humanity can be, the courage to build something beautiful in the wilderness. Sarah felt tears welling in her eyes. She'd come to Haven's Rest to escape the complexity of human civilization, but she was learning that even in the galaxy's furthest corners, the bonds that tied humanity together were unbreakable. We're going to resolve this situation peacefully if possible, Okafor continued, but I want you to understand no one takes our people, no one threatens our communities, not while there's a single human ship left to stand guard. As the Admiral's words echoed across the colony, Sarah Chen realized she was witnessing something unprecedented, not just a military response, but a demonstration of human unity that would reshape how the galaxy viewed her species. The Zephyrians had thought they were claiming an abandoned world. Instead, they had awakened something that had been sleeping in, the depths of human civilization, the absolute uncompromising commitment to protect their own. The war hadn't started yet, but in the space between threat and response, humanity had already won something more valuable than any battle. They had proven to themselves and to the galaxy that they were truly united. In the Grand Assembly Chamber of the Galactic Council, emergency sessions rarely drew full attendance. Most species preferred to send junior diplomats to handle routine crises while their senior officials dealt with more pressing local concerns. But today, as news of the Haven's Rest situation spread throughout the galaxy, something unprecedented was happening. Every seat was filled. "I've never seen anything like it," whispered Ambassador Trill of the Aquarian Collective to his Centaurian counterpart. "Even the species that haven't spoken to each other in decades are here." The Centaurian ambassador, a tall ethereal being whose translucent skin shimmered with nervous energy, nodded gravely. "The humans have been sending messages, not ultimatums, not threats, reminders." Reminders of what? Debts of honor. Old agreements, times when human ships pulled our vessels out of hyperspace storms, or human doctors saved our colonies from plague, or human diplomats mediated our wars. The Centaurian's voice carried a note of awe. They're not asking for military support, they're simply reminding us who they are. Across the chamber, similar conversations were taking place. The Vegan Trade Federation was quietly discussing the human merchant ships that had protected their cargo vessels from pirates for nearly 50 years, never asking for payment beyond friendship. The crystalline hegemony was remembering the human scientists who had helped them perfect their quantum matrices, sharing advanced research freely in the name of scientific cooperation. Species that had considered themselves neutral in galactic affairs were discovering that neutrality was more complex than they'd realized when it came to humanity. At the center of the chamber, Fleet Admiral Chen Wei stood at the speaker's podium, her uniform bearing decorations from a dozen different worlds. She was not asking for anything. She was simply explaining what was happening. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. 3 days ago, the Zephyrian Confederacy attempted to annex a human colony under false legal pretense. This action has prompted a response from the Human Colonial Authority that I believe merits your attention. Admiral Chen activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. It showed the Haven's Rest system, but instead of focusing on the opposing fleets, it displayed something far more remarkable: the logistics network that was supporting the human response. "As you can see," Chen continued, "humanity's response to this crisis has involved not just our military forces, but our entire civilization. Supply ships from our agricultural worlds are providing provisions. Medical vessels from our core systems are standing by. Research ships have diverted from their missions to provide technical support." The display shifted to show communication logs, thousands of them, messages of support from human colonies across the galaxy, offers of resources, ships, personnel, civilian vessels, volunteering for non-combat roles, retired military personnel requesting reactivation. "But what I want to emphasize," Admiral Chen said, her voice growing warmer, "is that humanity's response has been shaped by the values we learned from all of you." The holographic display changed again, this time showing a vast network of connections stretching across the galaxy. Lines of light connected human worlds to dozens of non-human systems, each connection representing decades of cooperative relationships. Our commitment to peaceful resolution comes from our partnership with the Diplomatic Guild. Our advanced medical response protocols were developed with the Healers Alliance. Our quantum communication network incorporates discoveries made jointly with Centaurian scientists. Our approach to refugee assistance was inspired by the benevolent collective's humanitarian principles. A murmur ran through the assembly as delegates began to understand what they were seeing. Humanity's response to the crisis wasn't just about military might, it was a demonstration of how deeply integrated they had become with galactic civilization. "We are not asking for your military support," Admiral Chen said, and the chamber fell silent. "We are capable of resolving this situation ourselves, but we wanted you to understand that when humanity responds to a threat, we respond as students of galactic civilization, not as conquerors." The Vegan ambassador stood slowly. "Admiral Chen, what assurances can you give that this situation won't escalate into a broader conflict?" Chen's expression was grave but confident. "Ambassador, humanity has never initiated a war of aggression. We have never claimed territory that wasn't legitimately ours. We have never broken a treaty or violated a diplomatic agreement. Our record speaks for itself." She paused, looking around the chamber at the assembled delegates. "But we have also never failed to protect our people when they were threatened. That record also speaks for itself." The crystalline hegemony's representative, a being of living mineral whose thoughts, manifested as patterns of light within their structure, pulsed with what those familiar with their species recognized as deep contemplation. "Admiral, if I may, the Confederacy's actions represent a legal gray area. Colony abandonment and salvage rights are established in galactic law." "You're correct," Chen acknowledged. "But Haven's Rest was never abandoned, it was simply quiet." The difference between abandonment and privacy is the difference between a lost ship and a ship sailing under silent running conditions. The chamber erupted in quiet conversations as delegates conferred with their advisors. The SKU human explanation was elegant and legally sound, but it also revealed something that many species had suspected but never confirmed. Humanity's intelligence network was far more sophisticated than anyone had realized. "How did you coordinate this response so quickly?" asked the Aquarian ambassador. "Our own military would need weeks to organize a fraction of such a force." Admiral Chen smiled slightly. "We've had a lot of practice working together, both with each other and with our friends throughout the galaxy." It was a diplomatically phrased answer that revealed nothing and everything. The assembled delegates were beginning to understand that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their military. It was their ability to build relationships and maintain them across generations. The session continued for hours, but the real decisions were being made in smaller conversations throughout the chamber. Species that had maintained careful neutrality for centuries were quietly reassessing their positions. Old alliances were being strengthened, new ones were being born. By the time the session ended, something fundamental had shifted in galactic politics. The Zephyrian Confederacy's attempt to claim an abandoned human colony had instead revealed the true extent of humanity's soft power, their ability to inspire cooperation and unity without coercion. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, many carried messages for their governments, not orders to deploy military forces, but recommendations to honor old friendships and remember shared values. The war for Haven's Rest was becoming something much larger, a test of whether the galaxy truly believed in the principles of cooperation and mutual respect that had guided interstellar relations for generations. And humanity, by simply being themselves, was showing the galaxy what those principles looked like in practice. On board the Zephyrian flagship, Commander Vexhai stared at intelligence reports that grew more dire with each passing hour. It wasn't just the military force arrayed against him, though that was certainly impressive enough. It was the diplomatic isolation. Species that had been neutral or even friendly to the Confederacy were now issuing statements, expressing concern about the situation. Trade routes were being quietly rerouted around Confederacy space. Diplomatic missions were being recalled for consultations. How did they do it? Vexhai asked his intelligence officer. How did they turn a military crisis into a diplomatic catastrophe for us? The intelligence officer, a creature whose species prided itself on analytical thinking, looked genuinely perplexed. Sir, they didn't do anything aggressive. They simply reminded everyone who they are and who we are. Vexhai understood with sinking dread. The Confederacy had built its expansion strategy on claiming abandoned territories and forgotten worlds. They were known throughout the galaxy as scavengers, picking up the pieces that others had left behind. It was a reputation that had served them well when dealing with truly abandoned assets. But it was a reputation that looked very different when applied to a living human colony. The humans hadn't just responded with military force, they had responded by demonstrating the depth and strength of their relationships throughout the galaxy, by showing that they were not alone, never had been alone, and never would be alone. Commander Vexhai was beginning to understand that he had not just attacked a human colony, he had attacked the principles that held galactic civilization together, and the galaxy was responding accordingly. The standoff had lasted 8 days. 8 days of the most massive fleet concentration in galactic history, with humanity's forces growing stronger by the hour while the Zephyrian Confederacy found itself increasingly isolated. But it was on the 9th day that Commander Vexhai finally understood the true nature of his predicament. "Sir," his communications officer reported, voice trembling with barely controlled panic, "we're receiving a transmission from Confederacy High Command." Vexhai straightened in his command chair, hoping for reinforcements, new orders, or at least some guidance on how to extract himself from this catastrophic situation. Instead, what he heard shattered his understanding of his own government. "Commander Vexhai," came the voice of Supreme Marshal Korth, the Confederacy's highest military authority. "You are hereby relieved of command and ordered to surrender your vessels to the human forces immediately." "Sir?" Vexhai's voice cracked. "I was following established annexation protocols." "You were following outdated protocols against a target you failed to properly assess, Marshal." Korth's voice was cold with fury. "Your actions have destabilized our entire sphere of influence. 3 of our client states have declared neutrality in the past 24 hours. Our trade agreements with the commercial consortium have been suspended pending review." The full scope of the disaster was becoming clear. The Confederacy's expansion strategy had always depended on being seen as a legitimate government, claiming legitimate salvage. But the Haven's Rest operation had revealed them to be something else entirely. Pirates with delusions of grandeur. "Marshal, I request permission to negotiate." "Negative. You will surrender unconditionally to Admiral Okafor and accept whatever terms she offers. The Confederacy disavows this operation and all actions taken by your fleet." The transmission ended, leaving Vexhai alone with the wreckage of his career and the growing realization that his government was abandoning him to save itself. On the bridge of the human flagship Determination, Admiral Okafor watched the Zephyrian fleet with something approaching pity. Her tactical officers were providing regular updates on the enemy force disposition, but the real intelligence was coming from her diplomatic staff. "The Confederacy is in complete political collapse," reported Commander Santos, her liaison with the diplomatic corps. 3 client states have declared independence in the past 12 hours. Their main trading partners are reviewing all commercial agreements, even their own. Member worlds are questioning the leadership. Okafor nodded grimly. "What about the Zephyrian crew morale?" "Intelligence suggests significant unrest," Santos replied. "They're career soldiers who believed they were serving a legitimate government. Learning that they were essentially conducting piracy operations has been difficult for them to process." And Commander Vexhai, all indications suggest he genuinely believed Haven's Rest was abandoned. He followed standard salvage protocols based on faulty intelligence. In other circumstances, he might even be considered a competent officer. Admiral Okafor studied the tactical display showing the opposing fleets. The Zephyrian ships were maintaining formation, but her sensors detected subtle signs of decreased readiness. Ships whose crews had lost faith in their mission rarely fought with maximum effectiveness. "Open a channel to the Zephyrian flagship," she ordered. When Commander Vexhai's image appeared on her screen, Okafor was struck by how defeated he looked. The arrogant confidence she'd seen in their first communication had been replaced by the hollow expression of a man who'd lost everything. "Commander," she began, her voice carrying none of the steel it had held in previous exchanges. "I've been monitoring communications from your government. I understand your situation has become complicated." Vexhai's shoulders sagged slightly. "Admiral, my government has disavowed this operation. I've been ordered to surrender unconditionally." "I see," Okafor replied. "And what are your intentions?" For a long moment, Vexhai was silent. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of a man grappling with the collapse of everything he'd believed in. "Admiral, may I ask you something?" "Of course." "When you mobilized your entire civilization to protect a single colony, was it about the strategic value of Haven's Rest?" Okafor considered the question carefully. "No, Commander. It wasn't about strategic value at all. was it about? Principle, she replied simply. The principle that every human matters, that you can't just take what belongs to us because you think we won't notice or won't care, that there are lines you don't cross, even in the name of legitimate expansion. Vexai nodded slowly. I think I understand now. We didn't just attack a colony, we attacked an idea. The idea that people have the right to live in peace without fear of being salvaged by larger powers, yes. The Zephyrian commander was quiet for another long moment. Admiral, if I surrender my fleet, to you what happens to my crews? Many of them are career soldiers who believed they were serving their government honorably. That depends, Okafor replied. Are you surrendering because you've been ordered to, or because you understand why this operation was wrong from the beginning? Vexai met her gaze directly for the first time. Both, I think. I was following orders, but I should have questioned those orders more carefully. I should have verified that Haven's Rest was actually abandoned instead of assuming it based on communication silence. And if you had verified it, we would have discovered it was an active human colony and left immediately. The Confederacy may be many things, Admiral, but we are not war criminals, or at least I thought we weren't. Admiral Okafor made a decision that would later be studied in diplomatic academies across the galaxy. Commander Vexai, I'm prepared to accept the surrender of your fleet under the following terms. Your vessels will be returned to the Confederacy government within 30 days. Your crews will be repatriated immediately with full honors. You, however, will remain as our guest until this situation is fully resolved. Those are surprisingly generous terms, Vexai said, clearly taken aback. They're appropriate terms for a military officer who was following orders based on faulty intelligence, Okafor replied. However, I want to be clear. This generosity extends only to your immediate command. Any future attempts to claim human territory under false pretenses will be met with far less understanding. As Vexai prepared to transmit his surrender orders, Admiral Okafor added one final comment. Commander, you asked what this was about. Let me be completely clear. This was about the principle that attacking any human is attacking all humans. That principle is non-negotiable. The formal surrender took place 2 hours later, conducted with military precision and mutual respect. As Zephyrian ships powered down their weapons and prepared for repatriation, something unprecedented happened throughout the galaxy. Species that had been watching the confrontation began issuing statements of support for the principles humanity had demonstrated, the right of peaceful colonies to exist without fear, the importance of verifying claims before taking action, the value of proportional response over overwhelming force. What had begun as a territorial dispute had become a defining moment for galactic civilization. Humanity had shown that it was possible to be strong without being aggressive, to respond to threats without becoming a threat themselves. On Haven's Rest, Sarah Chen stood in her garden once again, but this time she wasn't alone. Hundreds of colonists had gathered to watch the surrender ceremony broadcast from orbit. As the Zephyrian ships began their journey home, a cheer went up from the crowd. But the real celebration was quieter, more profound. The knowledge that their simple desire to live in peace had been backed by the entire human race, that their choice to build something beautiful in the wilderness had been validated by the greatest show of unity in human history. We're not just colonists anymore, Marcus Webb said, standing beside Sarah as they watched the stars. We're a symbol. A symbol of what? That humanity keeps its promises, Webb replied, even the ones we never spoke aloud. The war that had threatened to consume the Haven's Rest system was over, but its consequences would reshape galactic politics for generations to come. 6 months after the Haven's Rest crisis, as historians were already calling it, the galaxy was still adjusting to its new reality. What had begun as a simple territorial dispute had fundamentally altered how every species viewed humanity and how they conducted their own affairs. In the halls of the Galactic Council, the changes were immediately apparent. The human, colonial authority had been granted permanent observer status on the Security Committee, ACR, privilege previously reserved for the galaxy's 3 oldest civilizations. More significantly, the Haven's Rest principles had been codified into galactic law. Any claim of territory abandonment now required extensive verification and a mandatory waiting period for counterclaims. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez, humanity's new representative to the Council, stood before the Assembly addressing the quarterly session. Her words carried weight that human voices had never held before in these chambers. Honored delegates, she began, 6 months ago, the galaxy learned something about humanity that we had hoped never to demonstrate, that we are capable of mobilizing our entire civilization in defense of our principles. Today I want to discuss what we've learned about ourselves and about our place in galactic civilization. The chamber was packed. Representatives from species that rarely attended council sessions had traveled across the galaxy to hear humanity's assessment of the crisis and its aftermath. First, Rodriguez continued, we learned that the bonds connecting human communities are stronger than even we realized. Haven's Rest was not forgotten or abandoned, it was simply quiet. The difference between silence and absence is something we will never allow to be. Confused again, she activated a holographic display showing the current state of human space. What had once appeared to be a loose collection of scattered colonies now clearly showed the underlying structure that connected them all. Second, we learned that our diplomatic investments over the past century have created something unprecedented, a web of mutual respect and cooperation that spans dozens of species. When humanity responded to the Haven's Rest crisis, we did not act alone, we acted as students and partners of galactic civilization. The Centaurian ambassador nodded approvingly. In the months since the crisis, Centaurian-human cooperation had reached new heights, with joint research projects and cultural exchanges expanding rapidly. But perhaps most importantly, Rodriguez said, her voice taking on a more serious tone, we learned that the galaxy is capable of upholding its highest principles when those principles are clearly articulated and consistently defended. The aftermath of the crisis had indeed been remarkable. The Zephyrian Confederacy had undergone a complete governmental restructuring, abandoning their expansion through salvage strategy in favor of legitimate colonization and trade. 3 former client states had been granted full independence and were now thriving as free worlds. The Confederacy's transformation has been voluntary and complete, Rodriguez continued. Former Commander Vex High, now serving as their Director of Colonial Verification, has implemented the most rigorous territory assessment protocols in the galaxy. What began as a crisis has become a model for how civilized species should conduct expansion. This was perhaps the most surprising development of all. Vex High's imprisonment had lasted only 3 weeks before Admiral Okafor personally recommended his release to assist in reforming Confederacy practices. His first-hand experience with the consequences of inadequate intelligence had made him the galaxy's leading expert on preventing similar crises. Today I want to announce humanity's commitment to the principles that guided our response to the Haven's Rest crisis, Rodriguez said. We are establishing the Colonial Protection Service, a joint human galactic organization dedicated to verifying the status of potentially disputed territories before claims are filed. The announcement sent ripples of approval through the assembly. Several species had been concerned about the precedent set by humanity's overwhelming response to the crisis, fearing it might encourage other powers to adopt similarly aggressive defensive postures. The Colonial Protection Service offered a proactive alternative. This service will be funded by human resources, but staffed by representatives from across galactic civilization, Rodriguez explained. Its mission will be to prevent Haven's Rest type situations from occurring by ensuring accurate information is available to all parties before territorial claims are made. The Diplomatic Guild's representative stood to address the assembly. Ambassador Rodriguez, on behalf of the Guild, I want to express our support for this initiative. The Haven's Rest crisis demonstrated both the best and worst of galactic civilization, our capacity for unity and our tendency toward assumptions. Thank you, Guild representative, Rodriguez replied. But I want to emphasize that this service is not about human dominance or control. It's about preventing the kind of misunderstanding that nearly led to an unnecessary war. As the session continued, delegate after delegate rose to speak about the changes the crisis had brought to their own societies. The Aquarian Collective had reformed their own territorial assessment procedures. The crystalline hegemony had established new protocols for verifying research station abandonment before claiming scientific equipment. Even species that had no direct involvement in the crisis had been prompted to examine their own practices. But perhaps the most significant change was less tangible but more profound. The galaxy had witnessed the true extent of human unity and found it both inspiring and sobering. Humanity's ability to mobilize their entire civilization in defense of principles, not territory, not resources, but principles, had established them as representative to the colonial authority, stood in her garden, the same garden where she had first seen the Zephyrian ships. But the vegetables she tended now fed not just her family, but also the steady stream of visitors who came to understand what the Haven's Rest crisis had really been about. "It's strange," she said to Marcus Webb, who had become the colony's official historian. "We came here to get away from galactic politics, and we ended up at the center of the most important political event in recent history." Webb smiled, his hands busy with the communication equipment that now kept Haven's Rest connected to the broader galaxy. Maybe that's the point. Maybe the galaxy needed to be reminded that politics aren't about power and territory. They're about people and principles. In the months since the crisis, Webb had received thousands of messages from humans throughout the galaxy. Not just congratulations or support, but something deeper. Expressions of pride in what humanity had accomplished and commitment to living up to the standards the crisis had revealed. "Do you think it will last?" Sarah asked. "This new balance?" Webb considered the question while adjusting a long-range sensor array. "I think humanity has found its role in galactic civilization, not as conquerors or even leaders, but as guardians of the principles that make civilization possible." Above them, the stars held fewer warships now, but the few that remained carried more meaning. They were not there to threaten or intimidate, but to remind the galaxy that some principles were worth defending with everything you had. The Haven's Rest crisis had ended not with victory or defeat, but with understanding. Understanding that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their military might, but their absolute commitment to each other and to the values that define civilized behavior. And in a galaxy that had grown accustomed to power struggles and territorial disputes, that commitment had proven to be the most powerful force of all. The war that had begun with a forgotten colony had ended with an unforgotten lesson, that unity